I'm not sure that everybody knows this, but cruising can be difficult. It can be hard for fat people. And in this episode, I want to share with you 10 plus-size cruise challenges. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host, Tony. Some call me Big T, and I am your plus-size guide for today's adventure. And I know many of you out there are scratching your head like, how can this bag of bones, this svelte, skinny young man be talking about fat cruisers? Well, let me give you my credentials. First and foremost, I've been cruising for 6 years, and during that time, I've taken 49 cruises across 10 cruise lines. And here comes the shocker. During all of that time, my weight has fluctuated between 300 pounds and 400 pounds. And so, regardless of the appearance, I have done some fat cruising. And then embarrassingly, there was that one time at Megan's Bay in St. Thomas where I was sunning myself on the beach and the locals tried to push me back in the water for fear that I was dying. That's right, they thought I was a beached whale. Shout out Louis Anderson, that's a classic joke. I can't take credit for that. But all joking aside, there are some serious challenges for plus-size cruisers, and surprisingly, it starts even before you get on your cruise. Plus-size cruise challenge number 1, transportation to the cruise port city and transportation to the cruise terminal. Now, I know a lot of plus-size cruisers, and there is a common thread that runs through this community when it comes to going to the cruise port. Most of the time, plus-size cruisers, they drive to the cruise port, avoiding trying to cram themselves on aeroplanes. And man, this can be one heck of a trade-off. You're certainly looking for comfort. The car provides more comfort than an airplane, but what you gain in comfort, you often massively give up in time. I know for us, one time when we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, we decided to cruise out of Galveston, Texas, and the flight to Galveston, only a few hours. It took us 2 days to drive from Charlotte to Galveston, breaking it up, getting a hotel. We were comfortable, but man, the time commitment just to get to and from that cruise was about 4 days, opposed to less than a day's worth of travel on an airplane. Now, for me, as time has gone on, I've started to explore flying more and more. Unfortunately, a few of the airlines have really good person of size policies. Southwest Airline, I feel like, has the best for me, but sometimes even those policies don't fit my needs. Found several scenarios where I've ended up having to use business class or first class, which comes with a whole nother trade-off. Fat people are normally trading comfort for something else. And when it comes to the airline, this time you're trading comfort for money. Probably the most egregious example of that this year for me is when I flew to Australia. No way I could have done that in economy. I ended up paying $9,600 to have one of those first class pods. I mean, I was comfortable in the seat, but $9,600 was quite a significant hit to the finances. And like I mentioned previously, transportation to the cruise port city, not the only pre-cruise transportation challenge. You also have a little bit of a challenge when it comes to traveling to the cruise terminal on the morning of your cruise. Excitingly, many hotels in cruise ports will offer some sort of shuttle from the hotel that you stay at to the cruise terminal. But realistically, those shuttle buses, they're not always the best transportation for plus-size people. Much like an airplane, when it comes to shuttle buses, plus-size people struggle to fit on just one seat. And so you're forced into a scenario where you're taking up 2 seats, limiting the amount of people that can get on the shuttle bus, or you're crammed in with another person. Sometimes you're crammed in with a stranger, making them uncomfortable. Sometimes you're crammed in with somebody who is familiar, but if that person is plus size also, then the issue has just been compounded. Now, I've suffered through many a shuttle bus, but somewhere along the way, I decided it was time to make another trade-off. Comfort for money again. Now, most of the time when I go from a hotel to a cruise terminal, I will get myself an Uber, and many times I'll get that Uber X so that I get picked up in a bigger vehicle so that I can have myself a comfortable ride from my accommodations to the cruise terminal. Plus size cruise challenge number 2, the embarkation process. I've said it many times, there's a few stress points when it comes to cruising. Embarkation, certainly one of those. And that stress point tends to be compounded for plus-size cruisers because in that process are several activities that are sometimes challenging for the fat. Many plus-size cruisers have challenges with mobility. And for anybody who's been through an embarkation day, you know that simply you're going to have to walk from where you got dropped off all the way to the cruise ship, which means many steps through a terminal, snaking your way through a gangway, and then eventually arriving at the prize. That can be a challenge for some. And if you're fortunate, the walking's the worst part of embarkation day. But if you're unfortunate, you can also add a lot of waiting in line to that process, waiting in line to get into the cruise terminal, waiting in line to get through security, waiting in line to get checked into your cruise cabin, waiting in line until they open up boarding. And well, like I've already established, plus size people, they have challenges with mobility, and many times that mobility extends to standing for long periods of time, making standing in line a significant challenge. Of course, with everything in life, if you know these challenges in advance, you come up with some sort of coping mechanism. You may bring yourself a portable stool that you may sit on while you're waiting in line. And fortunately, in most cruise terminals, there are a lot of places to stop and sit as you're making your way through the embarkation process and making your way onto the cruise ship. But if you're a new cruiser, you're uninitiated to this, and you are a big cruiser, just know that embarkation may present some challenges that you did not anticipate. Plus size cruise challenge number 3, seating. That's right, something as simple as seating. You would anticipate that for the larger person, there would be plenty of places to sit on a cruise ship. And while certainly that varies from cruise ship to cruise ship, there are some pain points that seemingly exist on every cruise ship. The main 2 challenges that come to mind for me is seating at food venues and seating at entertainment venues. When we think about the included food venues, of course, the main ones are the main dining room, the MDR, or the buffet. And I've had challenges in both of those places. I would say I've had more challenges in the main dining room than the buffet. Many of the setups in main dining rooms include fancy chairs with arms that are hard for larger people to navigate. Fortunately, some main dining rooms have chairs without arms that you can request, but that does become a whole process. Every time you go to get a seat, you have to request a chair with no arms. You have to wait for the arrival of the chair with no arms. All the while, you're usually holding up a line or standing in the middle of the room, just wanting a place to sit down. And surprisingly, I've run into several buffet setups where the seating has been a challenge also, where all of the chairs have arms, where there's no bench seating or no seating that you can move away from a table. And so I know there's been a couple cruises where I'd eaten a lot of meals in the buffet, but most of the time I had to take those meals somewhere else where I would not have to worry about whether or not I fit at the table. And let me just pause right here because I'm sure there's some curious thin people out there that are watching this going, well, why don't you just lose some weight, fatty? And certainly most people that are overweight, or many people that are I can't speak for everybody, but I know as a person that's been big for a while, that it does play on you. Man, I need to lose some weight. I'd like to lose some weight. And the fact that I can craft a list of the challenges that I've had on cruise ships should be motivation enough. But for whatever reason, all of that doesn't motivate me to, pursue losing weight aggressively enough to lose weight. I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm sure many can assign a lot of answers to that. Oh, I'm just weak, or, I don't have whatever. I don't know what the answer is. And that's very real for a lot of people. I think the latest statistics, about 4 out of 10 people are considered obese. It's a real challenge. It's a real challenge for a lot of people. And if there were easy answers, I'm assuming that people would be going for those easy answers. It's a tough nut to crack, and of course, many of us haven't cracked it. And I do think I can speak for many heavy people when I say this. We're still out here trying to be alive. We're still out here trying to participate in the world. We're still out here trying to adventure and travel and to discover new things and to, be a part of the human condition. And unfortunately, we have a struggle that makes some of these things limiting. I'm sure it's not going to be a satisfactory answer for anybody that's, bold enough to say, well, just don't be fat, because that's really a simplistic reduction of something that is a little more complex and nuanced. But I thought I would acknowledge it. So so there's seating challenges at food venues, but there's also seating challenges at entertainment venues. Unfortunately for the big, many of these cruise ship main theaters have auditorium seating with very limited seats that don't have arms, very limited bench seating, that kind of thing. Fortunately, there are a few cruise ships out there that have those where you can enjoy the show without much discomfort. But my experience has been, if I want to go to that nightly show in the main theater, I'm going to have to squeeze myself in somewhere, experience some discomfort to enjoy the show. And I guess I should throw in the honorable mention for challenging seating on a cruise ship. Those that love that balcony life of cruising know there's nothing better than having access to the wind and the sea right there from your cruise cabin. But unfortunately, for those plus-size cruisers, many times the seats on your cruise balcony have arms and you can't fit in them, and it's a bummer. But yeah, part of the deal. Plus-size cruise challenge number 4, the cruise cabin toilet. This is a big, small deal for the plus-size cruiser. If you've cruised even one time, I think you're keen to the idea that your basic accommodations on a cruise ship are smaller than your basic accommodations in a hotel on land, and that includes the bathroom. Of course, the toilet's regular size, but the space to use the toilet has been shrunk. And so often the fat cruiser has to limber up before doing their business, performing an act of contortion to get positioned on the throne so that they can get it done. And that contortion is probably not limited to the act. It's also limited to the cleanup. For me, there's just been some cruise cabins that have been tough to get the business done in a comfortable way. Fortunately, cruise ships have a lot of toilets, but again, you got this trade-off. You can go find a bigger toilet and do your business in a public restroom, foregoing the comfort of being in the privacy of your own cruise cabin. But when nature calls, you got to do what you got to do. Plus size cruise challenge number 5 goes hand in hand with the toilet. Of course, we're talking about the cruise cabin shower. All the same things apply that I just mentioned. Your cruise accommodation has been shrunk down. Everything is smaller except you, and you have to fit yourself somehow in the cruise shower. Certainly, you can get under the water, but being able to maneuver around and get yourself clean can sometimes be a challenge. Much like the public toilet situation, there is often a public shower in the gym on cruise ships. But then you're back into that same trade-off we talked about before, being able to do something comfortably in your privacy, opposed to being able to do something comfortably in a public shower situation. Plus size cruise challenge number 6, weight limits. Weight limits on fun things to do. Want to ride that new roller coaster on Carnival Cruise Lines? Can't do it. Want to ride those new go-karts on the NCL cruise ships? Can't do it. Want to jump on the Flow Rider on Royal Caribbean cruise ships? Can't do it. And you can't do it for a good reason. It's not safe. And certainly we want our cruise lines to be safe, but it is disappointing as a person of size when you realize that all of the fun things that has been marketed to you on the latest and greatest cruise ship is something that you cannot use because you weigh too much. Plus size cruise challenge number 7 is you can't buy any clothes at the gift shop. Branded merchandise is a challenge. Look, there's a very superficial part of this challenge, and then there's a very significant part of this challenge. The superficial is, yeah, you're not going to be able to get the cool branded t-shirt because they don't have a 4X or a 5X. But the deeper part of this issue is what happens if for some reason the cruise line loses your suitcase or the airline loses your suitcase. There's no clothes on board that you can purchase to round out your wardrobe if your wardrobe has gone missing. And certainly most people's luggage isn't going to end up lost, but the occurrence of lost luggage is certainly greater than zero. I would say that most of us know someone who's had their luggage lost or delayed. And if you look at the tags in your clothes and they're all small, medium, large, extra large, you might be okay. But if you have to go beyond that, 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X, well, you may have trouble getting clothes on the cruise ship. Plus size cruise challenge number 8, swimming pools. This one seems like it shouldn't be an issue because most everybody can fit in a cruise ship swimming pool, but it's not necessarily the fitting in that we're worried about, it's the getting out. If you look at the swimming pools on most of the main pool decks on modern cruise ships, the way that you exit that pool is by a ladder, and for larger people, climbing out of a pool using a pool ladder, well, that can be stress-inducing. Fortunately, there are a few cruise ships out there that have stairs that will take you in and out of the swimming pool, but those are few and far between, and so I think you'll find a fair amount of plus-size cruisers skipping the pool altogether. Plus size cruise challenge number 9, all things excursions. One of the more exciting parts of cruising is the ability to visit different cruise ports around the world. And of course, port days mean excursions, whether those are ship excursions or third-party excursions. And well, excursions are a challenge sometimes for plus-size cruisers. Most cruise lines will break their excursions down by activity level, from strenuous to moderate to easy. And you'll see many plus-size cruisers picking the easy excursion, but you run into some of the same challenges we've already mentioned here before. First and foremost, you have to walk off the cruise ship, and many times to meet an excursion, you have to walk the length of a dock to get to that excursion, and that can be a challenge for people with mobility issues for plus-size cruisers. And then you run into that old transportation problem. Many excursions utilize shuttle buses and coach buses for their transportation. And we've already established that for the plus size cruiser, a lot of times one seat on the shuttle bus or one seat on the coach bus is not enough. And so if the excursion is full, you end up trying to cram yourself into a single seat, oftentimes sharing seats with strangers and making them uncomfortable, and it's just a bad situation. Plus size cruise challenge number 10 is that they do not allow overweight people in the cruise gym. You cannot get spa services or gym services. I'm just kidding. There's no limitations on the gym or the spa. Maybe we should be encouraging each other to use them more. But I do want to use number 10 to point out something that should be obvious through all of these other challenges. There is a level of activity when it comes to cruising. You will be subjected to a lot of walking. You will be subjected to waiting in line. You're probably going to move your body more than if you're just at home, sedentary every day. And so just be prepared for that. Or if your mobility is so far gone, there are options for people on cruise ships to rent scooters and have other ways to assist their mobility. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that sometimes cruising is hard when you are fat. That's certainly true. I've laid out 10 challenges here that may make you think twice about going on a cruise if you are a person of size. But honestly, knowledge is power. I wanted you to know what you were getting into, and I wanted the opportunity to encourage you. I have been fat for the last 6 years. I've traveled to 18 different countries. I've been to 5 different continents. I've met a wonderful amount of people, and my life is so much more greatly enriched because I've traveled the world, and I want that for all of you. We got to deal with our problems. We have to deal with our limitations, but we cannot let those things cripple us and hold us back from the life that we have in front of us. So be encouraged, get out there and travel, work on yourself, get on a cruise ship, whatever it takes. But I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate you. Thank you so much for checking out the episode today. If you would like more cruising content, please consider subscribing. If you could, hit that like button on the way out. This is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.